My name is Daisy Lovain, and I grew up on Fordson Island in the 40s and 50s. My father came to the United States from Croatia. He worked as a miner before landing a job as a bricklayer at Ford's. Sometime in the late 20s or 30s, he built himself a house, and then about 10 years later, he met and brought Daisy home from Pennsylvania to share the house with him. Some 20 years later, they are shown descending the steps of our house. I was the youngest of three children. Both my brother Joe and I were born in the house on the island. Below the house were two garages. The one on the left we called the tool garage, and that's where my father kept his tools, and that's where our water pump was, and that's also where his wine kegs were, where he made wine. We heated the house with a pot-bellied coal stove, and that coal shanty where they would deliver the coal was next to the car garage. We drew our water from a well, and how my father managed to build such a well that would filter out all the contaminants that were dumped into that river, I have no idea. But the fact that I'm alive today and my mother didn't die until she was in her 90s proves that he knew what he was doing. So the second photo was taken in 2011 when the Friends of the Rouge and myself did a cleanup on Fordson Island and discovered just a mere hole in the ground where all the lovely brickwork had been. In my opinion, and I think my family's too, that we felt we were in a paradise in the midst of a city because, for one thing, it was cooler there. In the summertime, we were surrounded by water. We had land to have farm animals, from anywhere from chickens to lamb. I begged my father for a horse, but I never got it. And my father would almost give me anything I wanted, but he wouldn't give me a horse. And then also our home was surrounded by fruit of all kinds, vines and trees. I think you name it, we had it. Okay, here's a picture of me when I think I was about 10 years old. This was a big deal that I had a hairdo, and so my picture was taken, and I'm standing in front of the Blackberry farm, and that would be the land that Marathon later purchased, and my days of playing in a lovely, lovely pond abundant with frogs and tadpoles was done. There were a lot of wild animals on the island besides our domestic animals. We had quite a few pheasants, and we would, if they got injured, we would try to take care of them. And my brother in particular, he was very concerned with the wild creatures, and he rescued this pheasant, and he tamed it so it would sit on his shoulders. And that was one of the joys of living on the island, just being surrounded by nature. Almost everyone who lived on the island was interested in boats. This is a picture of Alphonse Began's home. He lived next door to us, and near the bridge was Charles Pepper and his family. I believe that he was the first black man black family in Dearborn, and they'd always greet me when I came home from school, like every day. And they had lots of cats, which I loved too. Walter Nally, we called him Murphy, and he was a bachelor. And he was a really, really nice man. And the vacant lot next door to him, it was like a sumac forest. And so we would spend all day long sneaking in that forest. We just lived in the out of doors. We rarely were in the house. And then, obviously, living on the end of the island, we saw all the Ford boats that came by, all the freighters. We had pictures and names of them all. My mother, if she was kind of crazy about taking pictures, and So anyway, this is just one of many, but this is showing an oil transporter that's parked. So this would have been like across, we would look west, I guess. I don't know, from our vantage point. And so that's an oil transporter, and he's parked outside of the malt plant, which may or may not have been in business at that time. And you can see the Dix Bridge on the right. And then the picture of the tug pulling the boat, that's more of what we saw as children. Almost always, a tug was pulling a freighter. They did not, I don't think they ever came down by themselves. I think it was always tug. But every picture that my mother, almost every picture, my brother has a few, but all the names and of all the boats, they got burnt up when the house burnt down. Okay, the next picture shows my brother and I in our 14-foot aluminum boat, and the picture on the right is from the Friends of the Rouge. I'm not sure where they got it from, but boy, that picture depicts the water I knew as a child, and I believe that picture was taken in 1965. So as to my brother and I in the aluminum boat, I was about 9 years old in this picture, and my brother was about 12. And we never went in the water on purpose, except for one really hot day. My mother was gone, and so my brother was a bit of a devil, and he coerced me into going into the water. We called it the Big River. The Big River was the channel, and the Little River was the original water. But anyway, we went into the water, and it looked just like that water on the right-hand picture. And my mother came home, and she was so angry. She never got angry. And when she got mad, boy, you paid attention. And we were confused. And I don't think she told us why we shouldn't have been in that water. She just told us to get out. And so of course, today, I know why she told us to get out. And you can see why she told us to get out. And so that's the golden color. I have no idea where that comes from, but you can see the oil slicks on the Little River, and that was the common occurrence to see those oil slicks. There were no fish in that water. There was no seed, no life in that water at all. Once in a while, you'd see an oil slick turtle or a bird that might have got caught in the grease. Few animals ventured in, and when they did, they got soaked in oil. Many years later, when I went out with the Friends of the Rouge on the Rouge cruise, I almost cried when I saw the ducks and the green plants. And that is why I have such a soft spot for an organization that can clean up that river. That is amazing. Thank you, Friends of the Rouge. Okay, I left the island. This is a picture of myself and my two children. Craig wasn't born yet there. I had three children, Frank, Matt, and Craig. And so I left in about the 60s, but we always came back. Everybody loved Grandma's house. We were there constantly. And but things were changing, and this picture shows the Marathon tanks in the background that replaced the blackberry farm that I talked about in the previous picture. So this is my son Frank and myself in front of a cherry tree, and in the background is this, we called it a smoke shanty, and that's where my father smoked all kind of meats and fish. I guess that's how they preserved food in the old days back in Croatia. He used to smoke huge slabs of ribs and then hang them in the attic for later consumption. And this brings back one more memory. I can remember when my mother got a refrigerator. So it was, if I can remember when she got a refrigerator, I had to be 5 years old or more. I don't know. She did have an electric stove she cooked on. After my father died in 1961, I don't know when, but the lime plant was built. And by the 70s, the dust from the lime plant made living unbearable there. It was just like a half inch of lime dust over everything. And this is just one of many photos of the destruction of her property that she snapped. She took pictures of in case she ever filed a lawsuit, but she never did. And then in 1981, vandals burned the house down while she was gone, and thus the pictures. Back in 2011, there was Friends of the Rouge organized a cleanup on the island. So during that cleanup, I snapped a photo of the telephone pole that helped me learn one of life's lessons. And that is, if you want something bad enough and are willing to work for it, then it can be yours. And I say this because, and how I happened to buy that telephone pole was because I was about 15 years old, 14, 15, and I was starting to get interested in boys. But I knew that I'd never get a date unless I had a phone number that they could call. Since this was not an option for my parents financially, it was obvious I had to earn some money to pay for it myself. So at 15, 16 years of age, I was hired as a switchboard operator at Sam's department store in Dearborn, Michigan on Schaefer Road. And I worked there several hours after school until I had enough money to pay Michigan Bell to give us telephone service. So, and that was one of my life's pivotal moments.
So you actually paid for that telephone pole?
I did. I don't remember what it was. I think it was a couple $100.
Wow.
We were the only ones that had telephone service on the island, too.
Oh, really?
I tell you, boy, I was a mover and shaker, boy.
You were determined.